Hi, Jonathan Stewart here in the Peruvian rainforest of Valle de Candamo. It's part of the Amazon that's very close to the Bolivian border in the south of Peru, and it's also one of the most remote places on Earth. So what better a place to test out these excellent top-of-the-line Swarovski Swarovision EL 10x50 binoculars. In this video I want to talk a little bit about what it is that makes these binoculars so special, a little bit about optics in general, and then finally get to the subjective question about whether or not these binoculars are right for you. Now, I really would like to show you what it's like to look through these, but in the end, nothing I could put on YouTube or the internet would do justice to what it really looks like through these glasses. I'd be constrained by the lens of the camera that I adapt to it, and then the sensor of the camera, and then the compression of the video, and then YouTube's compression, and then the resolution of your screen at home. So rather than try to do that, I just have to describe in words what it's like to look through these. So just in general, some of the things that determine the quality of a binocular are the optics, and you want an image that's going to be very sharp. Of course, that's the most important thing. But something that's often overlooked is something called chromatic aberrations. And that's where, if you're looking through the binoculars at a high contrast object in bright light, sometimes if you see the object in the top part of the binoculars, you get a bit of a purple fringe around the edges. And then if you move the binoculars up and you see the same object in the bottom part of the binocular, sometimes that can shift to green. Now, as a photographer, that's something that really bothers me, and photographers often will spend a lot of money on high-quality lenses to eliminate that chromatic aberration. But it's something that, even though it can't be completely eliminated, it's something that in editing we can remove fairly easily. So the premium on lenses and chromatic aberration is not quite as high as it is for binoculars, where of course the sensor and the ultimate registrar of the image is your brain. So one of the reasons that I was interested in the absolute top of the line is because this chromatic aberration bothered me so much. It's because I've trained my eye to notice it. And once you start noticing it, you can't not notice it anymore. So I started out with some Nikons, and then later on... There you go. Thank you. There you go. Later on, I moved up to these Zeiss Conquest binoculars, which I've done a review of in another video. And then my friend Cesar, who just handed me the binoculars, who lives here in Peru and is a professional birding guide, he works with all kinds of binoculars, and he sees clients from around the world who bring all sorts of top-of-the-line binoculars. And Cesar sent his Leicas with a client. Actually, he sent them with my wife home to me to get them repaired. And I looked through his Leicas, and these are about 30 years old. And I realized, wow, you know, these are a top-of-the-line optic, and they're 30 years old, and they still look amazing. So I figure, if you're going to make an investment, it's going to last at least 30 years. So then I thought, well, it might be worth it then to look into something a little bit better than these Zeiss Conquest, which, as great as they are, they're really a mid-range binocular, and they still do get some chromatic aberration. And it was enough that it bothered me. So I decided to try the Swarovski. Now, I have to say that the chromatic aberration is not completely eliminated with this binocular. It's still present, however, it's reduced to such a degree that it's hardly noticeable and it doesn't bother me anymore. Now, I will say that what really does make these binoculars stand out from, say, this Zeiss, which is, I would say, 95% as good as a Swarovski in terms of image quality. What makes them stand out is they just have that extra little bit of sharpness, that extra little bit of clarity, and that extra little bit of reduction of chromatic aberration. Now, it's not exactly comparing apples to apples here, because these are the 10x42s, and I wound up getting the 10x50s. And just practically what that means is the 50 will let in a slightly more light, and so in situations like this where it's not exactly, you know, bright sunlight, you're going to be able to see the images slightly better with the 10x50. What that means, though, is that also it's going to be a slightly heavier binocular, and so if you you know, have trouble holding heavy things for a long time, or you know, around your neck, at the end of the day it might be a bit heavy, so you might consider going for a 10x42 or even a lower magnification power, which is going to weigh even less. So comparing these three binoculars, you have a 30-year-old Leica. These are the Trinovids. These are an 8x42. You have the very new Zeiss Conquest, and you have the Swarovski. Again, they're all excellent glasses, but the Swarovskis do stand out just a little bit. Now, let's talk about a little bit about the build quality. Some people don't like this open bridge design. I think it's a matter of taste. I find it very easy to grip and grab a hold of. It's got the indentation here for your thumb. It fits perfectly and just provides a little bit of a positive reinforcement of grip that it's not going to slip. The material itself, it's very durable. It's not showing the wear. We're here in the jungle just beating the absolute crap out of them. Very easy to wash. The focus mechanism continues to work smoothly in spite of the fact that it's been in the sand and the mud and the rain. The diopter adjustment is quite easy. What I do like about the diopter is that it's indicated very clearly where you adjust it. So while one problem with this is that sometimes when you put it in a bag and it's very tight, sometimes this diopter knob adjustment can pop up and it can screw up the adjustment. Not a big deal. Once you know where to put it, you just put it back to that position and there you go. Another slight deficiency in the Zeiss Conquest, which is something that I was hoping that would be better with the Swarovskis, and in fact it is. The eye cups on these do tend to come off when you turn them. Now it's not a problem. Actually, these binoculars now live here in Peru. Caesar bought them from me, and he just turns them all the way down, so it's not a problem for him. But if you're adjusting them, occasionally they can screw off when you're trying to adjust it. It's a little bit of a build issue. Again, these are a midline binocular, and so it's something that you would hope would be addressed by a top-of-the-line Swarovski, and in fact it is. It's a much more positive feel on these, and there's a greater resistance at the end of the screw, so that if you want to actually take them off, it's a bit harder to do so. One problem with these that I noticed is these lens caps at the bottom. They're very, very solidly built and they go on really nicely and they're soft. However, just the very nature of them hanging down like this, if you're in a wind, they tend to flap up and pop around and block your view and hit your hand. So they're quite easy to take off. You just slide that off and you can get rid of them if you want to. So now let's move on to the question about whether a binocular like this would be worth it. Of course, it's an extremely subjective question. It depends on your budget and how you're using them, etc. But look where I am right now. I'm in one of the most remote and beautiful jungles in the world. We're seeing all kinds of animals. We're seeing jaguars, tapirs, ronsocos, which are, how do you say ronsoko in English?
Capybara.
Capybaras. And we're seeing, we just saw toucan fly by. We've seen all sorts of macaws. And it's just absolutely amazing to be able to see these animals close up as though we were just right there looking at them with a pair of binoculars like this. So I would say if you're coming to a place like this, it really behooves you to invest in a binocular that's going to give you that great view. If you're already spending this kind of money on a trip, then by all means enjoy it to the maximum and get some binoculars that's going to really let you see these animals. The other way to look at it is if you buy a pair of binoculars like this at home without any travel plans, it could very well be the motivator you need to get out and take a trip like this, because they are so good and so clear. You're going to get sick of looking at the neighborhood birds and animals and things around your house. So, it could very well be just the kick in the pants you need to get out. So in conclusion, I would say these binoculars are certainly the best I've ever used, and I've tried the top-of-the-line Leicas and I've tried the top-of-the-line Zeiss, and the image quality is right there with them, if not just slightly better. The feel is great, the build is great. I would say you couldn't go wrong with any of the top 3 European, German, or Austrian-made brands. I'm very happy I got these. I love the feel, and I don't think I'm going to be getting a new pair of binoculars for the next 40 years. This is probably it for the rest of my birding and wildlife watching career. So I highly recommend them. I'm very pleased, and if you decide to buy them, I'm sure you won't be disappointed.